You guys stop look maxing and start funny maxing. Looks maxing is for raging homosexuals, like the dudes that slide into my DMs on Instagram, knowing full well I have no interest whatsoever. But that's maybe the irony, perhaps the unintended consequences of being a good looking, funny guy. You know, it just so happens that I happen to be both. What can I say? But anyhow, so the thing with getting caught up in the looks maxing thing is that that's the female gaze. Yes, you can take a shower. Yes, you can get a haircut. You don't need these hour-long AM routines. You don't need to get ready and groom with me. You don't need any of that stuff. The reality is simply using a good olive oil soap will suffice. Taking a daily shower is good enough. Getting a haircut bi-weekly, twice a week, don't know, twice a month should be enough for most people. The simple things, all right, dressing well in real fabrics, staying away from polyester, all right, things like that is very simple. That's not really looks maxing per se. That's just you're just taking care of yourself, okay? You're not borderline turning into a woman. Because the reality is, looks maxing is conceptually it is from the female gaze, and as a man, you should be operating from the first person. So that's the first part, okay? The other thing is too, the reality is from the outside looking in, you look at these look maxers and you think to yourself, I'm about to fall into a plethora of pussy, because I'm pretty. And couldn't be further from the truth. Plenty of pretty guys have no game whatsoever. Yes, a girl might look at you. Yes, she might smile at you, but as soon as she gets to know you, um, it doesn't really go any further than that. If you don't know how to pursue, right? If you don't know your way around females, and if you don't have that practice, right? Because you think that your face is going to be enough to get you anywhere, and that's the reality. So what you need to do is instead do this. This is what matters most. Is you need to be an undercover comedian. You need to be able to preserve some sort of mystique. The other thing is you never want to let anyone know that you know you're funny, right? Because the laughs speak for themselves. I don't really have to tell anybody I'm funny because I think that is enough, right? The simple act of making someone laugh is enough. You don't need to boast about it. You don't need to yell it in their face. You don't need to make it obvious. It speaks for itself. That is the action. So jester max, if you will. And in this case, the courtroom is your life, the setting in which you, envelope yourself, right? Where you are most at. Um, and think about it like this to kind of segue even further. If you can make a woman laugh, you can essentially make her do anything. Because if she's laughing at what you're saying, she's immediately interested in you. I have met very few women that have been able to dazzle with jokes that I've been able to make laugh that haven't been willing to do other things with me. So if that is your end goal in being a jester maxer, if being a funny maxer, if that is the end goal, then believe me, there will be much of that to be had. Um, the thing is too, people like to focus on red pill, but if anything, you should be giggle pilling, right? Think of all the things that have happened in your life. And you want to think about it like this. There's two ways you can kind of go about it, right? You can either decide to lean into the tragic and cry, or laugh at your circumstances, make the funny out of them, and be rewarded handsomely as a result. So that's a part of it, right? How do you weave the story together? How do you put it together? And let me just say this as a preface. If you're looking at Joe Rogan as an inspiration for what funny is, sadly, you are mistaken. Any of his cronies, any of those guys at the mothership, you're very much mistaken. Those guys are not funny. That's not what you want to look for in funny. Okay, so the other thing you want to keep in mind is, sorry, I'm looking at my notes here, here's the other thing. The other sort of major bonus to being a funny guy is that if you are indeed um, really determined to make this a thing for you, you have to understand it's a powerful weapon. If you can manage to make a woman laugh, her eyes are going to be closed the whole time. It doesn't matter how ugly you are; she won't even know, right? So that's the other trick. And here's the thing: there's this saying in Spanish, and it translates to, well, let me explain what the what the saying is, right? But it says boca mata carita, which can be translated to the mouth kills the face. Essentially saying that you can work your way with words that will basically make it so that your face is nullified and it's not a factor anymore. And there are plenty of examples. I see it all the time where dudes that are not handsome at all but are really funny. They know how to talk. They're social butterflies that can just get women. And it's obvious that they're not banking. They don't have a choice, right? They're not banking on their looks. So you have to be real with yourself. If you can't bank on your looks, then you got to find something else to bring with you, right? What can you share with the world? And the other thing is too, even if you're remotely handsome, right? It doesn't mean that you should just stop there. Imagine if you had both, then you know your options are endless. And you got to try at the very least. Okay, you can say, well, you know what? I'm a serious guy. It's not in my nature to be funny. Well, you got to find a way to get crafty. Think about all the things that have happened and can you spin it into something funny, hilarious even, dare I say. Um, yeah, the thing is, the examples could go further. I could explain to you a bunch of them, but a lot of them are just kind of happenstance. It happens on the fly. That's the other thing too, is if I could offer any words of advice for how to start being funny, is you got to practice being witty. And sometimes it's not going to hit, sometimes it's offensive, sometimes it upsets people, but that's the risk you got to be willing to take if you want to get funny. And then eventually over time you fine tune and you kind of look for reactions and your in real time response to things that people say, you can throw back at them really quick. But that only comes with practice, and you got to keep a cool head. You can't get upset when people fire back at you. You got to be willing to play the game as well and have a little fun. But you got to be open to being hit as well. If people make fun of you, you take it in and you use it, and you don't get offended. You're like, well, okay, if it was objectively funny, then you got to be able to laugh as well. And I think that's the nature of it, right? Is you got to keep it light. Anyhow, I hope this helps. Like I said, be a jester maxer, forget looks maxing. Okay, and I'll see you in the next one.